IndyCar Grand Prix going.
The next victory.
Race fans, and now for the most famous words in motorsports, please welcome Indianapolis Colts quarterback Andrew Luck.
Drivers, start your engines.
You gotta love it. Race engines are running at Indianapolis in May. The build-up to the 101st Indianapolis 500-mile race starts with the run to turn 1 in the Grand Prix. We'll see that next. He may be colorblind, but he knows what a checkered flag looks like for sure. Will Power, the pole sitter, starting first today as you see the starting lineup come across the top of your screen. We'll also point out those we will ride with today. Graham Rahal is carrying their turnsfortroops.com camera from 20th. And Tony Kanaan has the NTT data on board from 12th. AutoNation on board rides with Marco Andretti. He starts 11th. James Hinchcliffe has the Lucas Oil on board from 10th. The Indy 500 winner, Alexander Rossi, the AutoNation on board from 9th. Ryan Hunter-Reay has an AutoNation on board from 8th on the grid. The man who's won this race 2 of 3 times it's been run, Simon Pagenaud, has the Verizon on board from 7th starting spot. And Sebastian Bourdais, winner at St. Pete, has a Verizon on board from 6th starting position. Stories from pit road before the green. Here's Dr. Jerry Punch.
Came up when the wind picked up. He lacked grip, and therefore, not only did he not sit on the pole, he didn't even make the fast 6. He will start 7th today. Now, Simon says the silver lining is I'll have fresher tires than the guys in front of me who ran the fast 6. And as well, Kyle Moyer, his strategist right here, says starting behind all the Penske cars, I can roll the dice with maybe some unusual pit strategy. So stay tuned. Here's Rick DeBrule.
Motor Speedway that he pulled off one of the greatest upsets in racing, winning the Indy 500. But the Grand Prix, that's a different creature. You're running a different direction. He has yet to go into turn 1 knowing what it felt like on that last lap. So yes, this is a special race at a very special place. Jan?
And red alternate. That new alternate is over a second and a half a lap faster. Look at all these front cars. They're on the reds, but they've been saving them for the start of the race. They have not run them in practice, so they know I have the fastest tire on the red, but they have no idea how long they will last.
Doubling up, coming to the start. Will they make it cleanly through turn number 1? Power to the inside, right of the driver. Castroneves to the outside, and the IndyCar Grand Prix is underway.
They've made it through turn 1.
Yeah, there's 13 more to go.
Saw Elio Castroneves just tucked behind Will Power at the start, tried to get a draft, tried to go around the outside into turn 1, but Will Power had none of it, and he's off and running.
That's Bourdais down the inside, trying to get a spot on Pagenaud.
Pagenaud loses another spot.
Oh, turn 7 back there, guys. I saw guys in the grass.
Got a car off the course. Tony Kanaan has gotten off. You see he's continued. We'll check for damage. We'll check for damage when we get a better look at the car.
We got a left rear tire going down. Left rear tire going down. Pit this lap.
That's Tony Kanaan's radio. Telemetry tells him the tire's going down. He said, I got hit by somebody from behind.
And Power and Castroneves are firmly in control at the front.
Ryan Hunter-Reay, Simon Pagenaud. We look further back. It's Pagenaud in that Neon 1 car. He's won this race 2 of the 3 years that it's been run. Qualified surprisingly poorly in 7th spot. Thought he might be a little more of a contender for the pole than he turned out to be as Kanaan comes in to get that tire that's going down replaced and all the rest of them. Doc?
Yeah, Tony Kanaan having bad luck. In 2 of the 4 races thus far, he's had contact at early laps on the racetrack. Gets the tires changed, he is down and away, but again, not the kind of year Tony Kanaan wanted to have.
So as Kanaan rejoins, we try and take a look at what might have happened to him.
You know, when you look at this right now, Tony Kanaan, you're going to see him right here as we're going to go ahead and roll this. He's going to come through the turn. Car coming from behind. Just slices the back of the tire. You can see that right there. Hits the rear wing, spins Tony around. That's 27, it looked like, of Marco Andretti.
I think the one that might have gotten him was 19 Ed Jones. They were side by side going in. See if it's the car to the left here that gets him. I can't tell, can you?
Yeah, it almost looked like the right rear pod of Tony Kanaan's car was hit, which I thought was Marco, and looked like Ed Jones was in there too. So just no luck overall, no matter who's hitting him. If it doesn't make your day any better, I can tell you that. I've lived that one.
Doesn't matter who it is, right? Yeah.
And if you sit down and think about it afterwards, there really is such a little amount to gain, Scott, in those beginning first laps. Look what happens.
Well, you know, I've talked about that before, but we've never done it. We just go ahead and try to make the best you can in the start.
Now, second place, Helio Castroneves might have hit. Oh, here's a piece of debris. And there it is. Now Dixon got a piece of it too.
And Dixon got it also.
Yeah, so the danger in that is, will the tires start to deflate because you've run over the debris? Remember, these are a slick tire. It's not like the road tire on our car that has treads and grooves and can really withstand a puncture like that. So at the end result, the teams will watch on their computers in pit lane to see if the tire's going down and alert the driver.
And that is really driver-friendly technology. Oh, who's going down the escape lane?
That's Bourdais.
We blew up.
And that is not.
Motor failure? By the sound of it, and the trail behind, yes.
He's leaving clues. It sounded bad, and there's oil coming out of the back.
Well, Sebastian Bourdais, who was the championship leader going into the last race at Phoenix, got caught up in a turn one, lap one crash that knocked him out of the lead in the championship. Now could be, well, the first car out here at the IndyCar Grand Prix.
You know, it's interesting. One of the smallest teams on here makes the Fast Six in qualifying, is up there with all the big teams like Penske, like Ganassi, and he said this morning, man, I had a great car, and I felt like I should be in the Fast Six of qualifying, which he was. So when you think about it, the small team is really achieving their ability when you look at it compared to the big teams, Eddie.
And he started off with such a push at St. Pete when he won that race starting from last. But right back here, we have Power and Castroneves and Dixon. So we're right in the middle of a Chevy-Honda battle. Jan?
More information on Sebastian Bourdais. You've talked about the Dale Coyne team and what a great job. And I think, Scott, you said punching the button. But for him, and we'll get back to you when we get have a mic issue.
Yeah, we got to get our pit crew to hop on that one, Jan. We'll get the stagger adjusted on that microphone and have you right back in the thick of things here in a second. Marco Andretti, you're looking at there, race control, and the three-steward panel reviewed the incident, and Marco will be penalized, a pass-through penalty for avoidable contact. He was the one they saw on their video, which includes the onboard cameras and everything else they've got, that got into the back of Tony Kanaan.
And I think that is a really good system that they have. They have three people looking at it. They can get to the bottom of it, Scott, really quickly, and it just puts all the doubt aside.
You know, it's very difficult because when you're on the start of a race or the start of going on a restart, you want to make up time, so you're pushing as hard as you can. Much like Marco was doing when the traffic slows down in front of you, sometimes you just don't get slowed down fast enough and end up hitting the car in front, which is exactly what Marco did running into Tony.
You have to take those opportunities, but you have to measure which ones to take and which ones not to. In the beginning of the race, there's a big trap there.
All right, Marco, we got a drive-through penalty for contact with Kanaan. We're arguing it, but we got to have to pit this lap. We got to pit this lap, drive-through penalty.
So when you get that message from your race strategist, it never makes you happy, does it?
Oh, I can tell you, I had it here one time in Indianapolis, leading the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah.
And I didn't come in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's the advantage of that?
How'd that work out for you?
Well, and they docked you, and even though you crossed the line first, they still docked you. But in this situation, it's early, and he has an opportunity to make it up as the race goes on. Not in my case, which is just a handful of laps to go.
And he's reacting well. He hasn't answered back on the radio. He knows he has to come in.
Charlie Kimball sliding by Marco there as he sets himself up to come to pit lane. Marco running now in 16th place. From Andretti's onboard camera.
Looking left side, he's there.
He drove into the back of him.
picked up a passenger on the way. All right, so here he comes for the pass-through penalty. This will be at the conclusion of the 6th lap of the race. 85 laps in this one. They've extended the race distance 3 laps from what it had been in the prior 3 years of running.
Drive through.
Which means the chance of anyone making a 2-stop race out of it is pretty much nil without half the race being run under caution. So everybody will make 3 stops today. This does not count as one for Marco because he can't stop. He has to drive through. Early stages of the IndyCar Grand Prix. And a quick reminder that if you're looking for the Spanish language version of the broadcast, it's presented by ESPN Deportes, and it is accessed by using the SAP function on your remote control. Will Power out in front, the pole sitter who dominated this race a couple of years ago after starting on the pole, is off to a gap of about 2.6 seconds. Biggest mover in the early laps of the race, young Spencer Pigot.
What a tremendous job he's doing. You know, a driver that has a part-time ride this year. Got a ride here shortly for Indianapolis 500, so he's very thankful for that. And a driver that's been through the Mazda Road to Indy program, as so many of the drivers in the series have done. So give him a lot of credit. Connor Daly, you also see on your screen, moved up 5 spots in the ABC machine, going from 15th up to 10th, and all those drivers right there, all those guys have done a tremendous job. Really important on starts to try and get positions, because you can see as the field starts to spread out.
Pigot, the 23-year-old Orlando, Florida native, doing a nice job so far, Rick.
Yeah, it's been a nice trouble-free weekend, actually, for Spencer. He's done really well, and he's been ahead of his teammate, J.R. Hildebrand, the entire time. Now, think about this. His best finish ever is a 7th. Right now, he's an 8th. I got to think there's a little bit of hunger to get that last extra spot ahead of him.
Yeah, you'd think so. This is Graham Rahal, who had a very difficult weekend in practice and qualifying, trying to get grips on the handling on this machine. Started way deep in the field, took the green flag in 20th place, and is trying to find a way to get another result like he had here the last couple of times this race has been run, where he's come out with good results from difficult starting spots.
He has had a difficult season this year. He hasn't quite gelled with his engineering crew, and they're not on the pace they should be. And we all know he's very talented because he went out and won his first race at IndyCar at St. Pete. But he needs to start meshing with his engineers better than he is now, because they're just not competitive.
And it's important to note that he is one of the single car teams that's out there, and he's going to have a teammate next week with Oriol Servia running with the Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan group to get him up and get some more data in there. But a single car team, it's very, very difficult. And Rick, you have more?
Well, yeah, in fact, he just came on the radio a moment ago talking to the crew. They asked him how it was, and he said awful. Now, it's important to point out he is running on the black tires. He feels the red tires are significantly better. They have to wait until their first pit stop when they can come in and do it. Now, in the morning warm-up, he did well. He was one of the faster runners out there, so he thought maybe he pulled something off. But based on his comment just a moment ago, not right now.
Well, again, he started on the primary tire and will have some of the softer and faster alternate tires at his disposal for the rest of the race, strategy-wise. Here's Scott Dixon. Remember, we heard from him on the pre-race show talking about trying to create some opportunities to pass by saving some fuel. You see he's dropped 4 seconds behind the leader, Will Power, but he's running in 3rd position, and we're closing in on that window for the first pit stops.
I am not sure of many things in this race, but I can guarantee you that Dixon has a plan, and he's in the process of executing it. Of that, I can be sure. So this is a man that can drive incredibly fast laps and not use up the equipment, not use up the fuel, not use up the brakes. It's a very rare talent, and he's using it right now.
You see from our ESPN race strategist, which is we got the same analytics and engineering data that these race teams use to pick out their strategies, and we got some so we could share it with you. That's what the caution ranges, the caution probabilities are on the right, and what the pit stop fuel ranges would be on the left side of the screen. So getting up to the beginning of that first pit window. So we'll take a break here, come back and set you up for it. Will Power is the leader so far. Can Will win the Grand Prix for a second time? We're back to the Brickyard after this from your ABC stations. For all of the oval safety features, they will spend tonight and tomorrow, the race teams converting these cars over to their oval track configurations. And practice for the 101st Indianapolis 500-mile race begins with rookie orientation at noon on Monday, and then open practice starts at 2 in the afternoon. Alexander Rossi was a rookie a year ago. Brian Herta and company engineered a way for him to pull off the upset win. Now he comes back as a sophomore, and you see here as he runs in 6th position in the Grand Prix.
And he's leading his teammates at Andretti Racing. He's running 6th, and Hunter Ray is 7th. So he has really made a lot of progress, Scott, this year, hasn't he?
Well, I just love watching the Honda telemetry, because watch the throttle hard onto the brakes down here into turn 7, down to first gear, watch up through the gears, so winding through this section here. I did this in a vintage car a couple of years ago, and what a workout this is. Accelerating now to turn 12, watch the speed here. And listen to the gear shifting here. Down the gears we go. Back on the gas. This complex here, guys, is so important because it leads you out of 12 into 13 where we are now, and on to 14, onto the long straight. You want to carry speed through here. Just listen to the engine sing here. What a great sound.
4, wheel 4.
That's the sound of 187 miles an hour.
And look at what it goes down to.
Yeah.
He's taking that right-hand corner at 60 miles an hour.
In first gear.
Yeah.
And 3 Gs under braking. You heard wheel 4 from the team, so telling him to change by the knob on his steering wheel the fuel trim mixture, trying to save probably a little bit of fuel so they can run a little longer on the track.
And here comes
Ryan Hunter-Reay.
Now let me just add this. Okay, we heard fuel trim 4. Did we make the thing run a little bit leaner, less fuel used, so they can have a great battle as they are right now? Ryan Hunter-Reay gets by, but you saw Ryan Hunter-Reay have more acceleration, more power to get that pass completed. So Ryan Hunter-Reay's probably running the engine just a little bit more rich, giving it more fuel, more horsepower.
Yeah, he hit the push to pass button there. So if you're new to IndyCar racing, these cars are equipped with a button on the steering wheel the driver can push. It's very video game-like, where the car gets a momentary burst of horsepower. New this year, they can have unlimited activations of that, but they have a total amount of time that they can burn. So they have 200 seconds worth of that extra horsepower. It's up to the driver and the team to manage it. Here comes Piggott on Rossi.
We're at that point in the race where the engineers are almost setting the pace of their car. They're saying we have to make an extra lap, so you're going to have to use a little less fuel. And I think that's, as you said, what just happened with Rossi. And also, I think when Hunter-Reay was passing Rossi, he was kind of telling him, I'm the boss here. Get behind me. There's a lot of that goes on in racing, Scott. You have to do that. You have to put your imprint when you're inside of a team.
I can think of times that you and I had that.
You guys had more than your share of imprints on each other on the track. Which is why the pairing of you in a broadcast booth is always such an interesting thing. We got stories, folks. We got stories. What a nice drive for Spencer Piggott.
Impressive, because he really is part-time and running for Ed Carpenter Racing on all the road courses. When Ed is going to take over the duties, running at the Indianapolis 500 and all oval events. And as a young driver, when you are trying to make a full-time occupation of this, you take any ride that's available to you. So now for Spencer, getting a ride for the Indianapolis 500 with Juncos. Look at this, car sliding around, and the number 5, James Hinchcliffe, is in pit lane.
Here's your first pit stop under green flag conditions. So Hinch's team with the first strategy move, Jan.
Yes, and he's been complaining that the rear tires have been going. Remember, we talked about these alternates, that they don't have much longevity experience out on the racetrack. They're going to make a tire pressure change, and there was a little bit of a slow right front lug nut. They had to go back up on the jack again. So not only does James Hinchcliffe have a car he's not happy with, now he's just lost some time in the pits.
Perfect combination for making a driver happy. Change of position, Ryan Hunter-Reay around Juan Pablo Montoya. Now Spencer Piggott all over the back of the two-time Indianapolis 500 champions car.
Oh, a difficult pass and a difficult area to pass in turn 12 there. That was nicely done, and surprisingly, really no resistance for Juan Pablo Montoya.
None at all. Piggott is on a roll. He has to keep up with Hunter-Reay. If he can keep up with Hunter-Reay, Hunter-Reay will get to the front.
Simon Pagenaud around Alexander Rossi, or positioning himself to do so. Turn 1.
Boy, they've really dialed down Rossi's engine trying to save fuel.
front of the pack, the gap between Castroneves in second and Power in first has closed. Is Power saving fuel, or is the handling of his car giving up a little bit the more laps on this set of tires that they run? Just getting to the beginning of the pit window in the IndyCar Grand Prix, presented by Sea-Doo at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. Here is Spencer Pigot in for his stop, Rick.
Yeah, Spencer once again having done a great race. He passed 6 cars on the very first lap, and then was also able to get by Simon Pagenaud. Meanwhile, behind him, Juan Pablo Montoya has brought his car in. They're going to make a slight wing adjustment, a tire pressure change, but he is now on the black primary tires.
Pigot has a problem.
Simon Pagenaud, last year's winner, coming in, had some problem with rear grip this morning. Again, the rear tires going away. Slight wing change up front, 4 tires, putting the black walls on for Pagenaud. He's away.
And what a disaster for Spencer Pigot. Stalled the car, leaving the pit stop. That will cost him almost everything and more that he worked to gain in the first stint of the race. Rossi, Montoya, Chilton, sorry, all leaving, Eddie?
What he needs now is a yellow.
Badly.
He was one of the only 2 cars to start with new tires. That might have been why he had such an advantage over Hunter Ray. And Helio also started with a new set of reds.
Here's Helio in now for his pit stop from second place. There's the leader, Will Power. Scott Dixon now runs second. He's half the straightaway behind Will Power.
Now for Will Power, he knows that Helio is in pit lane, so he is pushing as hard as he possibly can to have a great lap. Doc?
Helio Castroneves, a 3-time Indy 500 winner. They're going to put the reds back on. They're putting sticker reds on. Most teams will go to blacks, but Castroneves has reds. John?
Ryan Hunter-Reay just leaving his pit, so he has had his service, and we're looking amazingly that Scott Dixon has yet to hit pit road. We're expecting him next time around. We see this battle leaving pit road at the moment between Montoya. They're on the pit speed limiter. They have to wait, and then they press the button, and Montoya's on it.
That was by less than a foot.
Yeah, Joseph Newgarden leaving here has to stay inside of that line on the pit exit. So Newgarden with a little bit of extra time on pit road that cost him some time on the track.
So now that everybody is getting a new set of tires, we'll really see, Scott, who is quick and who isn't. But I think you'll see those Penske cars continue to lead the race. But Dixon is still out.
Here's the leader, Will Power, coming down the pit lane now. Dixon follows him. Just past the 1/4 mark of the race and the first pit stop for the race leader. Doc?
No complaints whatsoever for Will Power. They will put scuffed primary tires, a black tire zone. Remember, Castroneves put the red zone. He'll have to speed the grip, holding Power to get the full fuel load. And he is away just over 8 seconds. John?
Scott Dixon is going for the black primary. That's a 7.3 second stop for Scott Dixon. They took some front wing out. Now that he's on the black primaries, this will be the segment he'll be slower. He's going to try to minimize this, which is why he went longer before this pit.
There is your new leader. Helio Castroneves went by Will Power as Power was exiting the pit lane.
Castroneves has not been lacking any speed this year. He got pole at Long Beach. He's more than capable of winning a race here at Indy.
You know, I spoke to him this morning just after the drivers' meeting as we see a good battle right now going between Max Chilton and Juan Pablo Montoya. And Helio was his usual self, excited, ready to go, but he said, I think I've got the best car. I think if it gets warm out, my car is going to respond very well. He said, I'm ready to go. I want to start the race like right now. So, you know, Helio's always excited, always ready to go, but today it was just more so. I thought that was really interesting.
What a difference it would make for him going into Indy, where he could be the 4th person in the world to win 4 Indy 500s if he won this race.
Now he's got Tony Kanaan just in front of him and Will Power behind him. So it's not an uncomplicated situation for Helio Castroneves. Drivers working hard on a beautiful Indiana afternoon, maneuvering their cars around this 14-turn Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. The IndyCar Grand Prix at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Our telecast presented by Sea-Doo. The second leader of the event is Helio Castroneves. Here's Graham Rahal and Mikhail Aloshin screaming down to turn 1.
And you see the numbers right on the roll hoop behind the driver's head, the PP doing that flashing right there. That's the push to pass. So the number 7, Mikhail Aloshin, was using the push to pass to try to defend his position against Graham Rahal going past him.
Aloshin is a very aggressive driver that has not made a lot of friends at IndyCar, but he's earned a lot of respect. He is willing to bring everything right to the nth degree. Rahal's going to have to be very sure when he goes to pass this driver.
Our Honda telemetry riding on board with Graham Rahal. It's one of the things that Graham said he was focused on for this season. Lessons learned from last year, having pace but not having results, is being more aware of who he's racing around and measuring the risks of his opportunities.
What a great camera angle. Now that is what you call a game of chicken.
Tires smoking, brakes squealing. That's beautiful.
Perfect driving from both of them.
Yeah.
This is a battle we need to watch because this is not going to be easy. He's going to make a run for it again at the end of the straightaway when Aloshin is not taking the inside line.
So Graham got an opportunity now to go past him.
Clear.
What he wants to do is get it in front of him and hopefully stretch away from him so he's not in confrontation with a car that is behind him. And now he's doing a great job here. Probably thought that he was quickest anyways.
Oh, he's in another city right now. He's gone.
So Graham Rahal in 13th after starting the race back in 20th place.
That's an improvement from where he was in
well, and he's on
practice.
the red tires for the rest of the race now, right? On the softer tires for the rest of the race. Remember that last year he qualified up front, had his time disallowed because his car was underweight after qualifying. He went all the way to the back of the starting grid and came all the way through to finish 4th. So making something in this particular race on a bad starting position is not something that has not done before by Graham. Simon Pagenaud 1, James Hinchcliffe 5, racing for 6th and 7th.
How much overtake do I have left? 121. You got to keep me posted on that because my dash says 7.
Well, that's a problem. James Hinchcliffe.
He'll know when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, and just to bring you up to date, remember that they pushed the rules on the push to pass, as you were talking a little bit before, Alan. Now a driver can turn it on and turn it off when he's got the pass completed. Before, when you pushed it, it would turn itself on for a set amount of time, and you would eat up those minutes, if you would, of push to pass. Now a driver can plan his way of getting through the turn.
Need to make sure you look after the rear tires. They saw the highest wear on those on the first set.
Some great information there. But now you can push the button on and off and use it as a switch when you need more power.
When you use it, you have to make sure you're very close. You can't just use it to catch up to a car. You have to use it as you're passing somebody.
Hinch has picked up a few spots in the race so far, Jan.
Yes, he has, and he's pleased about that because he said this is the worst the car has rolled off the trailer on a Friday this season. And of course, it was a compressed schedule. All the practice sessions, other than this morning's warm-up, took place yesterday, Friday. He said we threw a kitchen sink setup, as it's known. In other words, they changed everything on the car for every practice and never found what he was looking for. So instead of changing it yet again, they decided, well, what we had in the warm-up, we're just going to fine-tune and do the best we can. It seems like he's making good work with that so far.
You know, and that's great information because this is a track that, you know, road courses, you always say a driver can put the input in and improve the car. On an oval, it's really what the car is doing that tells the driver how fast he can push it. In this scenario here at this racetrack, this has got a lot of long duration turns, Eddie, with the exception of turn 1 and maybe turn 2. So the car has to work really well in the turn for the driver to be able to push it.
And in between those two corners, there, look, Rossi trying to pass daily. But in between those corners that you were talking about, there's a whole long technical session where you have to be, you have to be right on the limit going in on speed and squeeze the throttle in. Otherwise, you go offline. There we go.
Takuma Sato all the way down, kicking up the dust by the inside wall to get by Mikhail Aloshin.
No love lost between these two.
Yeah, and that battle when you go on the inside like Takuma Sato did, you're very much aware that the rubber marbles that are offline. You can see it there just a little bit. Pieces of rubber that come off the tires as the race progresses are offline. He would have actually been on that, so you have to calculate that, where you're going to pass and where you're going to go in and try and outbrake people.
Let's see what happens here. Aloshin tries to cut him down on the inside, and Sato goes right between him and the wall. There wasn't half a foot there.
Wow.
So that's not only one move. Now there's your move allowed by the rules and regulations. Did he do two? I'm going to be interested to see if that's under review.
And I don't think that argument's over quite yet.
Well, for now, Sato's pulled away, but now it is Aloshin with Carlos Munoz closing in on behind from him in AJ Foyt Racing's 14 car. Caught a glimpse of Connor Daly before in the other Foyt Racing car, the 4 machine. He just lost that spot that he was trying to defend to Alexander Rossi and gave up another one to Max Chilton. Munoz.
That was really interesting. It looked like Aloshin didn't feel like doing what he did to Sato again. Like that one, I got away with something. Let's not try that again. There was no defense whatsoever on that last pass, was there?
I'm also wondering if maybe the crews radioed him that, you know, hey, we're watching you on the screen here. Let's keep it a little bit clean.
I actually think that got Aloshin's attention, because if they were to touch at that speed, that would have been a big problem.
A look at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course from Simon Pagenaud's car. Download IndyCar Mobile and access exclusive live in-car cameras, hear driver and pit crew chatter, and more only on Verizon. Helio Castroneves, a 3-time winner of the Indianapolis 500-mile race, is the leader. He got the lead on an exchange of pit stops over his teammate Will Power. We're back after this from your ABC station. The IndyCar Grand Prix presented by Sea-Doo, live from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where the month of May is underway. 14 days from the 101st Indianapolis 500-mile race. Hinchcliffe and Rossi. This is for 7th and 8th.
And Rossi is not going to take no on this one.
And you can see the illumination again of the PP push to pass for James Hinchcliffe, and you got to believe for certain.
And that one's done. That was a textbook pass on the outside.
And Max Chilton joining in now in the fight.
Which is perfect for Rossi, because it takes Hinchcliffe's attention away from him and he can get some distance.
Remember, in that first stint, we were riding on board with Rossi when his crew told him to go switch his wheel to position 4, and he slowed down and started losing positions. He's making some of those up now with speed on the racetrack in that 98 car.
He's having such a better season this year than he did last year on the road circuits.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that, right? He's
learning.
He's been there before. He knows more about Indy cars themselves. Honda teams know more starting this season than they did starting last season with the aero kit they're using on the road and street courses. So many things. The Andretti team in general is running better.
Let's not forget about his confidence.
And he says he's in a completely different space than he was a year ago as far as comfort on the IndyCar circuit.
We forgot the most important thing, and he's this year's Indianapolis 500 champion for at least another. How many days?
Well, he's the champion forever. Right? You
just like you.
Didn't you just invite Scott over to your house to polish your Borg Warner trophy?
Okay, I misspoke. For the current, the reigning.
Yes. Ah, there you go.
I think he's going to get better and better as the season progresses. What I'd really like to look at right now, look at Castroneves continues to lead. And he has quite a distance between him and Power, 3 seconds.
Well, 3 seconds, and I was thinking it might be more. You can see the red sidewall tires on the number 3, the Verizon machine of Helio Castroneves, and his teammate Will Power put their standard black sidewall tires on. And I really thought that Castroneves would pull away a little bit further, because remember, Castroneves still has to use the black tires. Doc, you have more?
Yeah, exactly. That's what Roger Penske wanted to do with Helio. He wanted to go ahead and keep him on the reds and have him pull away. He wanted a 2.5 to 3 second interval, and right now Helio's even done better than that over the second place car of Will Power. But remember, as you said, they're going to have to come in and put black walls on next time. But Helio was the only driver in the morning warm-up who told me His car was rocket fast on reds, but it was pretty darn good on blacks. Everyone else said they were slipping and sliding, so we're going to find out if Elio's car is still good enough on blacks to be able to hold off Will Power, who will put the reds on when he comes in.
There was a little bit of hand signal there from Hinchcliffe. Did you catch that, Scott? Is that you use that in Canada?
I was going to say that's not Canadian, but he's Canadian. But Spencer Piggott was the car that went by. Remember, Spencer had that problem in the pit lane, and he has been one of the quickest cars on the racetrack as I've been watching the times here. So he's certainly got a car underneath him that's capable of going very fast.
And it looks like Hinchcliffe is suffering a little bit with his handling right now.
One thing that race fans can say that fans were not able to say years ago is, we can take you right into the heat of the moment right now.
Yes, that was a private argument that we
yes.
got some of the hand signals.
And driving these cars is very emotional because you're putting everything out there. I mean, these guys today are driving 70, 75 degrees, but I tell you, inside that cockpit, Eddie, as you and I both know, boy, it's a workout. There's no power steering, no power brakes, and you'll lose probably about 4 or 5 or 6 pounds of fluids today. So very much a physical effort, a mental effort, and it's an emotional drive for sure.
Look what Rossi's doing. He's now in a battle with Pagenaud. Rick?
Well, and think about this. Number one, you've got a guy on red tires, the alternate tires in the back, a guy on primary black tires in the front. We've been talking about how, number one, those aren't as good, so it may not be long before Rossi eats him up. But let's also talk about the fact that this is a perfect track for Rossi. He comes out of the European circuits, where they're much smoother, much nicer in terms of the overall effect. And in fact, he said this is a European-style track. He'd had one of his best races he felt here last year, and he expected to have another one today, and we're seeing it.
Very well put.
Beginning to work our way now into the window for the second round of pit stops. And the tire strategies that have been discussed, Doc just mentioned it a minute ago, between the top two cars will continue to unfold here. And it's one of the complexities of this form of racing. You look at these things and you say, okay, who's saving what fuel? I mean, the lead change between Castroneves and Will Power, was that all just on a quicker pit stop? Well, the data doesn't necessarily say that. So did Castroneves have to wait for less fuel than Will did? Definitely suggests that. Now Castroneves on the red tires, Power on the black. Elio has to put black tires on the primary tire, in theory slower off the bat, soon. So he's set up for the last stop at the end of the race. So it's really intriguing to see who hopscotches who, and every pit stop sequence is an opportunity for the lead to change.
Let me add one more wrinkle to that. You talked about Castroneves and Power. Dixon has fallen farther behind at 13 seconds from Power.
Yeah.
I would venture to say that the car that is using the least amount of fuel right now is Dixon, and that plays exactly into what you were talking about.
But at the same time, there's a point when you're too far back for that strategy to help you get the lead. 13 seconds is a long way back. We can speculate about all of this and what might be. The best part is we get to hang around and find out what will be in the IndyCar Grand Prix at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Hang on, Mikhail. The Indianapolis 500-mile race coming up, 14 days away. Our telecast presented by Firestone. We start at 11 a.m. Eastern Time here on ABC. The last few years particularly have been thrilling races, and we expect more of the same in a couple of weeks' time. Look forward to it and hope that you'll be with us for that. The month of May kicks off with the IndyCar Grand Prix. Will Power, the first of the front runners to make a move to pit road. Doc?
And he will go to the scuffed red tires. He told, I'm going as fast as I can go on the blacks, and was still losing time to Elio Castroneves, although Castroneves had complained of a vibration. Oh, Rick.
Spencer Piggott brings the car, and remember, he stalled after his last stop, so the key here is getting it out. They were debating about whether to do a full wing adjustment. They've decided to do that. He gets away cleanly. Doc?
Here's Simon Pagenaud, defending series champion, in for his pit stop, and he will go to the red tires. Pagenaud still having a little bit of an issue with rear grip going away with the car, even though they've tried to adjust the rear bars.
Seem to have a little trouble getting away there also. Also having been in on pit road, we have seen Connor Daly come in, installed his car while leaving. As J.R. Hildebrand, Charlie Kimball's car has pulled off the race course down in turn one. This was a few laps ago, and Kimball has climbed out of the car, had a little bit of liquid trailing from behind it as he pulled it into the runoff area. So Kimball, who finished 5th in this race 3 consecutive years, will not do so today.
Now for Elio Castroneves, you see in this silver Verizon car right there, he really wanted to get around Takuma Sato because this is his couple of laps before he's going to pit. He is trying to put some space on as quickly as he can to the number 12. And Jan?
Scott Dixon's coming in to get rid of his black primary Firestones. This should be his only run on the blacks. They're going now with scuffed reds. Not expecting any changes. Wow, nice click. Wow, they dropped it off the jack, sub-second seconds. Rick?
Meanwhile, Alexander Rossi came in with a nice clean pit stop. They are back out.
Pablo Montoya in, making his pit stop. So now we watch Castroneves.
Need to watch the gap between Castroneves and Dixon
as Rossi leaves the pits. Remember, on the last set of pit stops, Power led. Castroneves pitted first. Then when Will went down the pit lane and came back out, Elio was ahead of him.
In this time. Stop it.
Captain Roger Penske calling the strategy for Castroneves. That's Takuma Sato just in front of the race leader. He's just off the pit lane on fresh tires, so where he was closer to the front wing of Castroneves' car before, Sato pulling away on the fresh rubber. So how long will they sit still for fuel? They'll be putting probably the black sidewall tires on as Joseph Newgarden and Ryan Hunter-Reay come in, Jan.
Ryan Hunter-Reay taking this opportunity. He went a lap longer than he had done previously. And that was 8.7 seconds for him. Let's get down to Doc.
Joseph Newgarden in for his scheduled pit stop, putting the red sidewall tires on. And interestingly enough, when they told Elio to stay out one more lap, they're talking about a tire change in strategy here for the 3 car. It looks like they are not going to put the black primary tire on. They're going to bring Elio in this time and put scuffed red tires on and save the blacks for the final step, meaning he's going to have to drive his behind off, be able to hang on in the final step. But they're going to put reds on this time when he comes in.
All right, Doc, he's on the pit lane now, working his way toward you at that pit lane speed limit. We'll keep an eye on Will Power and Dixon and Castroneves as Elio's crew gets set to go to work. Doc?
They have been among the fastest on pit road at Barber in Long Beach. 6.5 second pit stop, 6.8. What can they do on this one? They've got to get him out quickly. Watching Will Power. Down and away, over 7.5 seconds, but the red tires have gone on.
See the fuel probe guy?
What was that?
Like he wanted to put it back in there. I wonder if they actually got the fuel in there or if something happened. We'll have to check in on that.
Yeah. So there goes Power by, and he'll reclaim the lead on this hopscotching of pit stops. And again, that plus the strategy play by the Penske team to put Castroneves on the alternate tires, the softer tires, forcing them sometime later in the race to put the black, slower, if you will, tires on.
And that changes the whole complexion of the race.
Yeah, now let's watch the pit stop. The fuel probe guy has got the fuel probe out. Now let's watch here.
And he almost got his foot run over.
Yeah, so I was thinking you might want to go and put that back in, but you know, it's interesting because Elio spent a lot of time behind Tony Kanaan, could not get past him, and then once he was, the next car in line coming up to Tony was the 12 of Will Power, and I think they saw he didn't want to get stuck behind Kanaan, so they called him in the pit lane. I think that was a good strategy move.
So just past the midway point of the IndyCar Grand Prix at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, Will Power led the opening segment. On the first pit stop, Elio Castroneves got by him. On the second pit stops, Power back by Castroneves and out in front of the race once again. The IndyCar Grand Prix, presented by Sea-Doo on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, the beginning of the month of May. Next weekend, qualification Saturday and Sunday here on ABC, as well as additional coverage on Watch ESPN. And then in 2 weeks, the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Tomorrow on ESPN, Sunday Night Baseball will be at Yankee Stadium as Derek Jeter has his number 2 retired by the New York Yankees. Coverage starting at 6:30 Eastern, and then after the festivities, the Yanks play host to the team with the best record in baseball, the Houston Astros. Streaming live on the ESPN app and Watch ESPN as well. So we saw that pit stop with Elio Castroneves where the fueler took the probe out, then appeared to like duck back toward the car with it as Elio hit the gas and started to go. Dr. Jerry Punch has followed up for us.
Yeah, I just talked to Travis Law, the car chief, and here Roger Penske was talking to him as well. And the original thought was to short fuel, to get him in and out, to put fuel in the car, but get him out of the pits as quickly as possible with the red tires on. Then they opted to put the probe back in to make sure they topped it off. And while all this was happening, they lost power to their timing stand, which is where all their engineers are sitting. They had to go to a backup power unit, which is a generator on the ground there, and that's what created a bit of a hiccup as well. You see the probe in, back in, and they believe, here again, they believe, and they tell me as they're high-fiving and fist-pumping that they did get the 3-car full of fuel.
All right, Doc, thanks. So Castroneves 1.5 seconds behind Will Power. He can see him right there. And again, still another set of pit stops to go in this race. Probability of a caution, not great in this one. We see a lot of green flag running in this race once we get beyond the early stages, and we have been caution-free so far, as this year they actually got through turn 1, lap 1 without any contact.
So how are they going to decide, Alan, how long to keep him out if they think they had a full tank? So he will probably be coming in earlier just to make sure what his fuel count is.
Well, first of all, a couple things. The tire strategy is a big thing, right? They still have to use the black primary tires on that 3-car.
And we're going to see how this goes now.
Where the 12 is gone. I mean, you put them out there, you see how it goes, and you adjust, right? What happens if a caution comes out?
Well, everything gets back in the mix.
You know, so,
happens.
I mean, we just saw the probabilities. Only a 40% chance in the next segment of the race. You know, so if you get that caution and the fuel is out the window, you also know how much fuel Elio is using at the time.
Yes,
and
I'm not sure they're positive how much they put in.
But they know how much he's using, and they'll know what they need to get to the finish from a certain point.
True.
So they've got options.
And
I'm confident that all those engineers huddled around at Penske Racing know what their options are thoroughly.
That doesn't work when the electricity goes out.
And then we have Professor Beekus, who has options for us as well.
There we go. Professor.
Yes, what I can tell you is there is no fuel level sensor in the fuel cell, but there is a fuel counter on the actual fuel rig itself. So in other words, whatever fuel went into Elio Castroneves' car, they'll know exactly how much went in because there's fuel flow on the actual hose going into the car. Then they can monitor how much he's burning in the car through live telemetry. So you don't have an actual float like you would in your street car telling you how much fuel is left, but they will know because of that counter how much got in and how much farther he has to go.
I know I should have asked the professor first.
Learn from your mistakes, please.
And you just saw Elio in turn 1 just go a little bit wide there,
yeah,
so you know that he is pushing as hard as he can. What's interesting to me, guys, as we watch Alexander Rossi right now and Juan Pablo Montoya directly behind him, I like what Will Power has done because he was on the black tires, went to the red. His next set's going to be a red. As the track is changing here from temperature, from rubber going down, he gets to tune his car and tell his team what kind of changes he needs, whether it's wing changes or maybe a tire pressure change, which we won't see them do. For Elio, he's going from the red set of tires that he was using for the last 2 segments, be going to the black. Will they get the adjustments correct, wing tire pressure and what have you? His car could be a bit of an unknown for him. So I like what Will Power has done in their strategy on the tires.
But you have to add the element that the track is getting rubbered in. There's a lot more rubber every lap that they run. So we don't really know if the blacks or the reds will be optimized in those conditions.
Well, that's what
Montoya there chasing Alexander Rossi. Juan Pablo back in 10th position. Rick DeBrule reports up from pit road. They had a hiccup on their pit stops, both of them, and that's what they're trying to work out today to get this crew, the 5th Penske Racing entry into the Indianapolis 500, ready to go. Will Power leads, and we're back to Indy after this from your ABC station.
The month of May is full of open-wheel thrills. The knuckle-biting Indianapolis 500 pole qualifying, followed by the 101st running of the Indianapolis 500. Racing's greatest month on racing's greatest track, all on ABC.
That's what's coming up in the next couple of weekends from here at the Brickyard. Today, we have another set of pit stops coming up between now and the checkered flag. The lead has changed on each of the first 2 rounds of pit stops today between Will Power and Helio Castroneves. You see the difference in times between each of their 2 pit stops, explaining the swapping of the lead between these 2 drivers. Let's go up to speed and take you back through the field. Dr. Jerry Punch is covering Will Power.
Yeah, sort of deja vu for Will Power. Back in 2015, he sat on the pole, led 65 laps. Looked like it was his day. No one could touch him. He's led 33 thus far. He will pit once more and put sticker red tires on it. Given the frustrations that Will Power's had this year, nothing is for sure. Remember, he was leading late at Barber and had a punctured tire and lost the race. Now, behind him, his teammate, Helio Castroneves. It has been 47 races since Helio has gone to victory lane. Detroit, way back in 2014. Remember, he's run the red tires now 3 stints. He will have to come in for the final pit stop and put the black tires on, which may make him a sitting duck, although he said today he had the best car on blacks of anybody in the Penske camp. Jan.
And Doc, that's a very interesting point, because behind Helio Castroneves is, of course, Scott Dixon. And there you can see the gap. It's about 6 seconds, and he has just been told by his crew, we need you to breathe it a little bit on the straightaway. So he's saving a little bit of fuel, but he knows that Castroneves will have to go to the blacks. He'll take reds. That could be a position he could get, Doc.
Yeah, been a tough week for the newcomer to Penske Racing, Joseph Newgarden, a 26-year-old, not on the racetrack, but off the racetrack. He got food poisoning Thursday night, was up all night vomiting, had to go to the care center for IVs. He had to push fluids and had clear liquids only all during practice on Friday and qualifying. He went back to the care center this morning to get more IV fluids, but has not complained one bit, other than the fact that the car is lacking a little bit of rear grip, trying to get his first top 5 in the Grand Prix of Indy. Jan.
Ryan Hunter-Reay is on a similar strategy in that he has already run his black sidewall primary, so he knows the best of his speed is yet to come. He's run as high as 3. As you can see, as 3rd place, he's had some quick times, but this is actually an excellent recovery for Ryan Hunter-Reay. They started this weekend with a car that he said was disconnected, meaning it just wasn't working the way he wanted from front to rear. Nice recovery, Doc.
And behind him, the reigning Verizon IndyCar Series champion, Simon Pagenaud, the Frenchman who's won this race twice, running in 6th position. This morning after the warm-up, Kyle Moyer said, we don't have a car that can win this race. At best, we are a 6th or 7th place car because we don't have enough rear grip. The car is tentative on entry and has an understeer on exit. They were going to go back and think about unhooking the rear bar to make the rear better. It has not gotten much better, and Pagenaud, who will put the reds on one more time, is stuck in 6th spot. Jan.
And Max Chilton, who will just come into frame here, was fairly close behind Pagenaud. In fact, his team recently was on the radio saying, used to push the pass to get by Pagenaud, but obviously there's a bit of a gap there. He was very disappointed with his qualifying. He was quick in earlier practice sessions, but said, just by a few inches, I missed these corners, and I paid dearly. Rick?
Well, Graham Rahal's been having a great day after it started out so badly. Remember, he started back in 20th, but ever since then, he's been coming on relatively strong, especially once he got to the red tires and felt that they were doing much better. Having said that, at one point, he was 4th in the warm-up this morning, so he felt the car was going to be pretty good. And at one point during this stint, he was the fastest car on the track for about 5 laps. So he's much more comfortable with the car. The problem is he just has so much ground to make up. Juan Pablo Montoya, well, he has not said very much lately, but as we mentioned a little bit earlier, they had some problems with their pit stops, and that's been their biggest problem. But it's important to point out, this was all about preparing for the Indy 500. They were just down there consoling the fuel man because he wasn't quite able to get the fuel nozzle in quite the way they wanted. One other interesting thing, take a look at his helmet. See how it's black? He decided, Montoya, not to paint the helmet because he thought he could save about 8 ounces on the helmet. And from side to side weight on a track like this, he felt it would help his neck, having come back from all that time being away last September. Behind him, Alexander Rossi. Yeah, he's last year's Indy 500 champion, but as we said at the beginning of the race, this track is a very different creature, but it's one he really, really likes. Yeah, Monday he'll start doing the oval practice, but for now, well, he's got Montoya in his sights. He said very little about the condition of the car so far, other than the fact that he's happy, but the one thing to remember is he is on black tires. When he gets his last set of reds, he may fly.
All right, Rick, thanks. Caution free in the race so far. Only 2 cars out of the event. Charlie Kimball and Sebastian Bourdais, both with mechanical problems. Mikhail Aloshin, we've seen him have his share of adventures today, and that another one that he somehow managed to save. Will Power leads 26 laps and another round of pit stops to go. Riding with Simon Pagenaud. And a reminder to download IndyCar Mobile to access exclusive live in-car cameras, hear driver and pit crew chatter, and more only on Verizon. Pagenaud, the winner of this race a year ago, the reigning Verizon IndyCar Series champion, running back in 6th position. So Will Power leads Helio Castroneves. 1.5 seconds is the gap between the two. Remember, we talked about Scott Dixon being 13 seconds back a little while ago. Scott Dixon is now just 6 seconds behind the race leader.
And he has not run his red stickers yet, so he's got a little bit of speed left in that. When he gets that close, when a driver can get that close, you can actually see the cars that are ahead of you, and I think that will give him a little bit more oomph. But I would not exclude Dixon as being a possible runner for the win here.
Our ESPN race strategist, computer, the analytics and the engineering numbers that the race teams use, that we also have our own of this year, projecting when these front runners will stop. We've had a discussion already of what they'll do tire-wise based on what they've done already in the race and what some must do, like Castroneves. So it's going to be interesting to see. And there is Dixon closing back in. So was he saving fuel earlier in the run and he's on it now? Are the other guys who were on it earlier in the run now saving some fuel? These are the little things that are going on within these team strategies,
and in the end,
that leave you to speculate.
And you can speculate right to the end, because at the end everybody puts their cards on the table. But Dixon is stuck in a little bit of traffic right now, and he's lost almost 7/10 this lap.
Well, the car directly behind him, Joseph Newgarden's been doing a terrific job, because we've already had documented that he's not feeling well. You see the light flashing on the top of Joseph's car, the push to pass, so he used it for a moment just to get very close to the backside of Dixon, and what he's trying to accomplish there, well, there he goes, coming into the pit lane a little closer so that if their pit stop can be faster, maybe he can leapfrog ahead of Scott Dixon in the pit lane. Let's watch.
And this is where a team makes all the difference, getting that fuel and tires on quickly.
Newgarden, Hunter Ray also in with Dixon. And we go to Jan.
This will be the final stop for Scott Dixon, and yes, indeed, he has a sticker set of reds here. This needs to be quick, and they've had ultra-quick stops thus far. We're not expecting any changes, but they want to get every last bit of fuel. Wow, 7.1 seconds, Doc.
Joseph Newgarden, sticker red tires, no changes whatsoever, topped it off in fuel, and he will dodge traffic trying to head out down pit road.
Well, that's Connor Daly, who was leaving the pits as well. Rick?
And Juan Pablo Montoya brings the car in. Remember, they had a problem with the fuel last time, and they reminded him, watch the clutch pulling out. Remember, even though he's raced a lot, he hasn't been doing this in anger for the last 6 months or so.
James Hinchcliffe in. Jan?
For James, he actually was able to stretch this a little bit longer. Remember, he was early on the sequence early on, and now he's been able to save some fuel and get back on sequence with the others. Back on sequence, Doc.
And Will Power will come down for his final pit stop of the day and put on the sticker reds. It should have the most grip, and he should be very comfortable and maybe have the most speed. Brings it to a stop, got to be a flawless stop. Remember, they had a problem on pit road at St. Pete when they ran over a hose and got a drive-through penalty. Can't have any mistakes. Waiting on fuel. 7.6 seconds, and he is away. Simon Pagenaud, last year's winner, will come down for his final stop as they put the sticker reds on him as well. Final set of tires. Pagenaud's been having problems with a little bit of rear grip, but he's away. Rick.
Xander Rossi brings the car down. Remember, it's been pretty smooth. The important thing you're seeing right there, they're taking off those black primary tires, putting on the red alternate, so he's going to have a much better traction when he goes out for his final stint.
Joseph Newgarden, you saw as we watched him exit the pits, him kind of pull up alongside Connor Daly, exceeded the pit lane speed limit, That is his pass-through penalty.
And I think what he did is he pushed the button on the steering wheel to leapfrog him on the way out so he could be behind Scott Dixon, but he paid the price.
Here's the moment of the race. Castroneves is in. We'll watch where Power and Dixon come back around as Castroneves makes his pit stop.
Final stop for Helio Castroneves, and here is the strategy call. Now the scuffed black tires will go on, the reds go off. Can Helio hang on with these tires on? They're slower, but remember, he was the only Penske driver that said he had decent speed on the blacks this morning in the warm-up.
And there goes Will Power. Castroneves trying to come out of the pit lane, get up to speed. It looks like he will in front of Scott Dixon, and so he'll hang on to second place for now.
And those first corners are so difficult when you have cold tires. And this is a harder compound than he's been used to. He has to get them up to temperature as quickly as he can.
You can see the green lights flashing again, push to pass. He's trying to make up some time. Doesn't want to get past from the guy that's behind because he's on warm tires. He wants a clear track ahead of him so he can start chasing down Will Power.
It's going to be a big ask.
Well,
With
especially
the Will
with
on the
those
softer tires.
Yep,
Now,
yep.
Graham Rahal is the leader. He hasn't stopped yet. Now he comes onto the pit lane right here. So that'll cycle the lead back around to Will Power. By the way, Joseph Newgarden got a second pass-through penalty because he exceeded the speed limit when he came in for his penalty for exceeding the speed limit.
I got a feeling he'll be having a private interview with Mr. Penske.
There you go, Rick.
The goal here, according to the strategist Ricardo Knoll a moment ago, just make it nice and smooth. Get it in, get it out. One of the keys was staying out a little bit longer so they could have a little bit more clear track. That was their hope. We'll see what happens when he gets out and whether he has that clear traffic.
So the cycle of what should be the final pit stops is done, and Will Power has a 5-second lead on Helio Castroneves. Power, who's had so many difficulties so far this season, has it all going his way so far at the Brickyard. Great stuff between Dixon and Castroneves in our side-by-side coverage as we welcome you back to the IndyCar Grand Prix presented by Sea-Doo. 17 laps to go. Will Power out in front by now 7 seconds as Dixon and Castroneves went at it for that runner-up position. Ryan Hunter-Reay 4th, Simon Pagenaud 5th. Next weekend, it's qualifications for the Indianapolis 500-mile race, both days, Saturday and Sunday, here on ABC, with additional coverage on Watch ESPN.
So now both drivers, Power and Dixon, can just go as fast as they want.
They can. The difference is Power's got an almost 8-second lead.
Well, this is racing. Anything can happen.
That's
Traffic.
true. Caution could still come out, though not likely, but it could.
Power would be a very deserving winner today.
Boy, does he had
such a hard season.
The hard luck award of the season or what? Had a great run going at St. Petersburg. Had a problem on a pit stop, ran over an air wrench, got a penalty, then had a problem on his car mechanically in the last laps where they were having a fuel pump failure and had to slow and eventually get parked in the final laps of the race. The Barber race in Alabama in late April was dominating. He was leading the race in the late laps, and the engineers began to see on the data in the pits that he was losing air pressure, and they had to call him to pit road from the lead with indeed what was a punctured tire. Got a good solid finish at Phoenix a week ago, or the last race ago I should say. Started second, finished second, and has come here today, Doc, and aside of getting shuffled out of the lead by the strategy on the first set of pit stops, has not put a wheel wrong yet.
He has not at all, Alan, and as you chronicled all the gremlins he's battled this year, a year ago if that had happened to Will Power, as you watch this battle here with Joseph Newgarden, a year ago if that would have happened to Will Power, he would have been over the top frustrated. But people say that he changed on December 21st this year when his son, Bo William, was born. He said he embraced the role of being a father. Suddenly he grew understanding and patience. And in years past he would have been angry and upset. Now he's understanding. He has perspective. He says, I'm going to embrace today and think it'll be better tomorrow. And guess what? Today at the racetrack was one of those better tomorrows he was hoping for. He's on his way to victory if he can hang on for 15 more laps.
That's great stuff. And what you can add to that is he is the fastest driver in IndyCar with his Penske when it comes to qualifying. We watched him in qualifying the other day, Alan. It was extraordinary.
Will Power told me that the perspective that changed for him was this. He used to need everything to be perfect, and he had to be relentless in his pursuit of perfection. And he said needing perfection was causing anxiety. And he's learned how to relax his approach, which is helping him overcome some of the things that aren't perfect and enjoy more the process of trying to win the race.
And that really helps.
Yes.
When you try to win the Indianapolis 500, which is a goal that is within his reach this year.
He's got a very healthy lead, just under 7 seconds over Scott Dixon with 14 laps to go. And Power, despite all of that hard luck that we've talked about that he's had in this season, after his runner-up finish at Phoenix, rose all the way up to 7th in the Verizon IndyCar Series Championship. So someone to look at contending, particularly when you think about the points that are available in the Indianapolis 500 and the next couple of weeks through qualifications, the double points in the 500. He's got an opportunity to put himself right back in the championship conversation with a good, solid next couple of weeks.
And he's off to a perfect start.
Caution free in this one so far as we watch Will Power and hear more about him from Doc.
Yeah, we talked about the fact that how hungry he is to win. He has not won since Pocono a year ago. And you see the margin there and how he has pulled away. But now John Boslag, his strategist, has asked him to slow down. He said, I need you to just take it easy and save these tires. In case we get a late yellow, we may need these tires to hold off Scott Dixon. So we got to be thinking about the big picture. So they're trying to pull in the yoke a little bit on Will Power. Maybe hard to do, though, if you're a race car driver and you're that close to a win at Indy.
You always have to be thinking of the what-ifs when you're the strategist on the box. So Power off onto the short chute on oval turns 1 and 2. Now corners 13 and 14 and back up onto the front straightaway. Going the opposite direction they'll be going on Monday when practice begins on the oval for the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Look at the gap between Will Power and Scott Dixon, as Will, as Doc reported there, is easing off just a little bit. There's Dixon.
There he is.
6.6 seconds behind the race leader. Scott Dixon, think about this, second in the championship, starting this day to Simon Pagenaud. Results this season, 3rd, 4th, 2nd, and 5th, with a team that changed manufacturers over the winter from Chevrolet to Honda, had to learn all of the data and adapt it to their car and their program. What kind of setups were they going to run? How are they going to maximize the aero package, the engine mapping, and all the rest? And yet here they are, second in the championship with those results to start this season. And Indianapolis, where he's a former winner, awaits. And a lot of folks think where the Hondas might have a little extra horsepower tucked away under the back engine cover.
It's not just horsepower, it's horsepower and aerodynamics, but Dixon has had a stellar season to date. He just needs that win.
Might be coming soon. So Dixon second. Hunter Ray has just passed Castroneves for 3rd. Elio has fallen back to 4th. Simon Pagenaud runs 5th. Final laps of the IndyCar Grand Prix. Back after this from your ABC station.
IndyCar Grand Prix on ABC, presented by Sea-Doo. Sea-Doo, making good days great.
Our Honda race rundown shows you what's happened so far in the IndyCar Grand Prix. Lap 1, Tony Kanaan and Marco Andretti had a little tangle.
And Marco Andretti just went in a little bit hot on the first lap, ran into the back of Tony Kanaan. Watch along here. Just a bit of a bump. Breaks the back end of Tony Kanaan's car. Marco Andretti serves a penalty for avoidable contact.
First penalty of the year issued to Marco Andretti. The lead changes in this would have happened on pit stops.
The pit stops here in IndyCar are so important, especially at a race like this that leads up to the 500. But the mechanics really do play an important role.
And the strategists and so on. So Power gave up the lead on the first set of pit stops to Castroneves, who then gave up the lead to Power on the second set of pit stops. And Will Power has been phenomenal in this one. Has led 52 of the 76 laps that have been complete. Started on pole, set a new track record in qualifying, and he is out in pursuit of his first win of the season and his second win in 4 tries in this road course race here at the Speedway.
And he hasn't put a foot wrong. Power is really quick, and when he gets the races right like he does here, he is unstoppable.
You know, I want to just put this button on the story of all the difficulties that Will Power has had this year. We talked about all the things that caused him to not get results that he deserved, and the reason he deserved those results is this. Even before today's race started, he has led the second most laps in the series this season and led 3 of the 4 races coming in. It's not like he hasn't had pace, just hasn't had luck. Well, today he's had the pace continued and appears, so far, to have the luck to go with it.
And the next race, I hate to keep repeating this, is the Indy 500. So all of this energy that his team is going to carry with them to the 500, I believe will make a difference.
So after the 3 pass-through penalties for the pit road speeding, yeah, Newgarden got a 3rd penalty after the initial one.
What
here he is back here speeding on pit road on his pass-through penalty.
So 3 of those.
3 penalties. One, you know, the penalty initially for the speeding, and then on the next pass-through he sped, and then on the next pass-through he sped.
Best to get out of your way this week instead of next week, right?
You think he might be done with those this year?
Bad day at the office. Newgarden just passing Takuma Sato there for 11th spot, 51 seconds behind the race leader, though on the lead lap. Here's Simon Pagenaud trying to chase down Castroneves as Elio appears to be paying the price for having to use the primary tires in this last stint.
Scott, you were 100% right on that.
Do I need to hear you say that one more time?
I will actually write a note to you, and you can hold it.
It's on tape, and we got 1 million or so witnesses, I'm sure.
Pagenaud has been somewhat absent today when you consider how well he's done this season. Just came off a win from Phoenix, his first oval win.
Yeah, which was big for him. Remember when we saw him the other day, Scott? He was just bubbly about that win.
So many of the drivers that are here come from road course background and then transfer over and start to learn the ovals themselves. And Simon Pagenaud is certainly one of those guys.
Which can be a jumping off point for a brief mention of what will be one of the main attractions for a lot of race fans in the next coming couple of weeks. A road course specialist, a 2-time world champion, learning how to oval race here at Indianapolis. I speak, of course, of Fernando Alonso, who will come over after running in the Spanish Grand Prix tomorrow and begin practicing for his first ever Indianapolis 500. You know the story by now if you follow IndyCar racing, skipping the Monaco Grand Prix to come here and take a shot. Of course, McLaren a little bit down on the Formula One side this year, so good timing for it. And how do you think he will fare would be my question.
I think he'll do very well until those last 10 laps, and he will feel like he just got sucked into a tornado. I think it's almost mission impossible. And this guy, you're talking about somebody that has the talent of a Jim Clark and a Graham Hill who came here many, many years ago.
You are one of the rare few we can talk to who raced in Formula One before coming to the Speedway to drive the oval. Was it an overwhelming experience for you? I understand times and cars and technology were different, but was it an overwhelming experience?
It's totally different, because when you make a mistake, you hit the wall immediately. When you make a mistake at Spa, if you're coming up a fast corner, you go through 100 yards of sand, then you go through some catch fencing, then you hit a soft guardrail. This place does not give you much room to recover from an error. But if you look at somebody like Alonso with everything he's done in Formula One, and let's remember, he was the guy that stopped Schumacher at 24 years old from winning, or was it his 5th or 6th Formula One race? But he did very well here in his rookie orientation, and he's going to have a very quick learning experience.
Scott, you had asked my thoughts on that, and I said I thought the Andretti team would follow the model they used to get Kurt Busch up to speed, who had never driven an Indy car, had oval track experience, as we watch Pagenaud get by Castroneves, had never driven an Indy car, particularly never driven it here. And the model that they used in getting Kurt Busch up to speed, and even in running the race with him, I thought would be an interesting one to compare.
And I think they'll follow through with that without a doubt. But the key thing, and I think Eddie touched on it, the last 10 or 15 laps, this race changes complexity. If you had some friends that you were running with on the track up to that time, it all goes out the window. And also the other thing here is when you're running in the track and you go here for your rookie orientation program like he did a week or so ago, you're by yourself, you're out there running, it'll be different for him on Monday when he comes out here because there will be traffic. He'll have to contend with dirty air off the cars around him. He'll learn that his car will slip and slide wide. But the key thing will be race day. Coming down here, rushing into turn 1 at 200 miles an hour, 3 wide, and then also dealing with all the dirty air and the traffic. That's going to be the learning curve for him that he'll have to be able to get through, which I no doubt he will. But you have to be patient, Eddie, as you and I talked about before, and learn that it's the car that does the work around here, not the driver.
And my good friend Nelson Piquet, when he came down here, 2 or 3-time world champion, he did not have patience, had something wrong with his car, and he spun coming out of turn 4, and it was so much damage to his feet, they almost considered amputating both of his feet. So this place has big teeth. You have to be very careful, and you always have to be paying a lot of attention. And I'm sure Alonso will do incredibly well, but it is almost mission impossible because these guys know what they're doing on those last 5 or 6 laps.
So down to the final few laps of the IndyCar Grand Prix, and Will Power continues to hold a 4.7-second lead over Scott Dixon. Dixon has used up all but 28 seconds of his push to pass time, though Power still has 48 seconds left. So
there you go here, bud. There you go.
he has that in the bank and 3 more laps to complete to score the victory. 29 career wins for Will Power in the Verizon IndyCar Series. He won his 47th career pole yesterday in qualifying. Think about those numbers. What an accomplished career for the native of Down Under.
Came over here, and when he first started racing in former Atlantic cars, he was a teammate to Simon Pagenaud for the Walker Racing team. So those guys were teammates previous to getting into Indy cars. Remember, they had many run-ins throughout the years of driving on different teams. And then when Simon Pagenaud was announced that he was going to join Team Penske, where Will Power already was, we sort of wondered how it would work out. But I guess Team Penske, and Roger in particular, has a way to make sure that everybody gets along.
Yes, it's his way. And what a way it's been. This is their 3rd win that they've had here, Alan, on this track? Of the 4 races?
Oh, for Penske, yes.
For Penske,
yes.
On this track.
2 to go.
White flag next time for Will Power. Just looking back through the running order while we follow the leader around. Really nice run for Ryan Hunter-Reay today. He sits in 3rd position after starting back in 8th. Talking about building momentum toward the 500. There's a former winner of the race who's going to come in with some momentum after a solid drive today. A frustrating season so far after a good opener at St. Pete for Hunter-Reay. Results have been harder to come by. Some mechanical gremlins and electrical gremlins for the Andretti team. Difficulties in handling at Phoenix in the last race, but a really nice momentum-building drive for Hunter-Reay today.
And finally, a good result for Rahal, who's now running in 6th. It's good to see him back on pace.
Graham Rahal, who started off back in the pack in 20th place, running in 6th place as we work our way around toward the final lap of this race. Max Chilton 7th. Alexander Rossi 8th, Spencer Pigot 9th after the great run in the opening laps to pick up some spots. And now the white flag in the final lap here at Indianapolis.
What's that smoke from?
That was up ahead of Will Power. Tony Kanaan locking him up in turn 1. Something that the former Indy 500 champ has had a lot of difficulty with throughout this last 2 days of running here.
He's really looking forward to getting off this track and getting into the speedway.
Now properly sees who's in the mirror, and he knows that he's leading, and like a veteran, like a professional that he is, he moves over and lets Will Power go through without a problem.
Rick Mears and Helio Castroneves, along with Will Power, have been tied for 11th place in all-time series wins. That is about to change as Will Power works his way through the final corners and toward a checkered flag. His 2nd win on the road course at Indianapolis, his 1st win of this season, and victory number 30 of his career. Checkered flag at the Brickyard to Penske Racing and Will Power.
Dude, nice work. Great job, guys. Great job. Great Friday. Very good effort all around. Thank you, guys. Release spot 8, man.
Final margin of victory, 5.2 seconds for Power over Scott Dixon. Hunter-Reay, Pagenaud, Castroneves will round out the top 5 in a caution-free race on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. Yes, they got through turn 1, lap 1 cleanly this year. 4th time was the charm. Dominating drive for Will Power, led 61 of 85 laps on the day. We'll hear from him and the other podium finishers when we come back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the IndyCar Grand Prix presented by Sea-Doo is complete, and Will Power is the race winner. New podium victory lane set up for this road course race this year. You see some of the fans able to get right up close to the cars and drivers who've just completed the race. Scott Dixon, Ryan Hunter-Reay out of their cars already, and now here comes your winner, Will Power. Will Power with the win today, and the first trophy in the month of May goes his way. The winning strategist is with Rick DeBrule. Well, we meet a more modest guy than John, but he's part of that Penske operation and a key part as the team manager that makes it happen for all of the captain's cars. Will Power, strategy directed by John, has gone to victory lane today on the road course at the Brickyard. So the race on the road course, the IndyCar Grand Prix, is in the books beginning in the month of May here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A look at final results as Will Power scores his 30th career win. We mentioned some of the others. How about Max Chilton equaling his career best result?
Impressive run for a lot of people today. Interesting to see how Honda's right up there and a mixture of both Chevy and Honda. Will we see that when we start getting into qualifying next week for the Indianapolis 500?
Joseph Newgarden rallied to 11th after the 3 pass-through penalties he had on the pit lane.
Yeah, I think he might have a rough few days to digest all that.
Well, if he wasn't feeling well and has some food poisoning, or did something go wrong with the button on the steering wheel? Because I've never seen people have three penalties all for the same thing.
And Charlie Kimball and Sebastian Bourdais, the only 2 drivers to fail to finish the race. Let's go back down to the podium area to Jan Beekes.
Scott
Self, and for the captain, Roger Penske, in the 500-mile race that comes up 2 weeks from tomorrow. Of course, Roger with 16 Indianapolis 500 victories as a team entrant. And you look at the season so far for Team Penske, and it's been a really solid one.
And you think about it, there's 3 in the top 5 today, so no doubt they're going to be strong here in the month of May. But anytime that you talk about Penske in Indianapolis, you got to think that they have the strategy all put together for here. I spoke to some of their engineers, and they were prepping all winter, looking at data, trying to figure out what they can do to make the cars better for this year's Indianapolis 500. There's no doubt that Indy is the mainstay and the reason why Roger goes racing.
Let me go back just a minute to Helio Castroneves. Every Indianapolis 500 win is an important one, but if he wins the next one, he will be one of 4 men in the world that have won it 4 times, and he will be the first non-American to do that feat. And I think in all of motor racing, that might be the most difficult goal to achieve.
Well, he certainly will have a good chance, for sure. As Castroneves finishes 5th today and turns his attention toward the 500, while Will Power still signs for the fans and celebrates his win in the IndyCar Grand Prix. Getting the oval ready to go, and then we begin practice Monday at noon with rookie orientation, and 2 in the afternoon the whole field goes out on the racetrack to begin Indianapolis 500 practice. Let's wrap up some more of today's action here in the Grand Prix on the road course. We go to Rick.
Standing by.
This really big technical battle between Chevy and Honda, because we don't really know. We keep seeing that one goes better at one track, one goes better at the other. I think we will know probably by the 3rd or 4th day, but we definitely will know once qualifying is over which is the engine package that is most efficient around here.
When you talk to the teams, they all talk about, well, Honda might, and the Chevy teams aren't saying a whole lot other than letting you believe that the Honda people might. I think it's going to be fascinating. Leading up to the 101st running of the 500-mile race. Qualifications next Saturday and Sunday, 4 Eastern here on ABC. Today it's Will Power holding the winner's trophy of the IndyCar Grand Prix.